When I was a teenager, I remember the day that my mum came into my room and she told me that she was going to stop reminding me to brush my teeth twice a day. It was now my responsibility. And I did it, but it was difficult. I had to have habit trackers. I had to set up reminders and notifications for myself. And every single day it would feel like it was a struggle. It was difficult to remember, and when I remembered it, it was difficult to force myself to do it. But I thought that habits were meant to be made in 67 days. Why did it consistently feel like it was a struggle for me? And why, in other areas of my life, was I able to create habits and do the things that I knew that I should be doing for a short period of time, and then slip back into old behaviors again and again and again? And this is a massive problem that so many of us experience. When you look at success, it comes down to repeated action consistently over a long period of time. That's what determines happiness and success and health and good relationships. It comes down to those consistent actions. But why are so few of us able to stick with those consistently? And why, when I was able to shift my perspective and focus on something different that wasn't optimizing my environment, it wasn't discipline, it wasn't willpower, it wasn't any of those things, was I then able to make long-term behavior change almost effortless? In order to really understand that, we have to go back into the 1950s, where there was a massive shift in the psychological science space. You see, before 1957, the psychological literature said that if you really want to understand what's going on in the brain, you've got to use the method of introspection, which very simply is you ask somebody, what are you thinking, and you get them to speak it to you. And then you're able to analyze what's going on in their brain, and you're able to really get an understanding of how their brain works. But in 1957, B.F. Skinner released a lot of scientific literature that took a completely opposing view that made a shift in the scientific space. B.F. Skinner said that if you want psychology to be a true science, you cannot measure anything intangible. You can only look at things that are objective. And whilst yes, we do have thoughts, it's impossible to measure those things. B.F. Skinner said that if psychology was to be a true science, it had to measure behavior. Behavior was tangible. When somebody does something, you can see it objectively and you can measure it. So he created the equipment necessary to test this. He created lots of different boxes and lots of different lights and even recording equipment to measure the behavior of pigeons. And there is one major flaw that B.F. Skinner had in his scientific studies, which I'll address in just a second. He believed that 100% of behavior came down to reinforcement theory. Very simply, if you want something or someone to do more positive activities, you provide them with positive rewards. You provide the pigeon with positive food, or you provide somebody with a smile when they do something good for you. And if you keep doing that, that's the behavior that they implement. If someone's doing something bad, you implement punishments. Maybe you frown at someone, or maybe you give the animal an electric shock. He believed that this reward and punishment system determined 100% of behavior in animals and in human beings. He concluded that neither thoughts nor emotions played a role in behavior change. It all came down to very simple reinforcement theory. Positive rewards and negative punishments, and that was the thing that determined 100% of behavior change. And maybe some of you who've gone through a period of losing weight may know this to be true. It's an example we've heard of before, but if you don't want to eat unhealthy things, you don't put unhealthy things in your environment and you're less likely to do those things. And optimizing your environment can be great in behavior change. It can actually be very beneficial. There's a link up there in the top corner if you want to be walked through a step-by-step process to optimize your environment to increase the likelihood that you make behavior change. But again, there's a massive flaw to this theory. And in order to understand this flaw, we've got to understand systems thinking. Everything that you can think of is a system, everything in life. And there are 4 parts to a system. We've got inputs, we've got processes, we've got outputs, and we've got environment. Inputs are the things that go into the system. Processes turn the inputs into outputs, which are the things you get out of the system, and the environment is the part outside of the system. But as we know, nothing operates in a vacuum, and the environment always plays a part on a system. If you think about businesses, it follows this model. The inputs are customers, the processes is the delivery of the product, and the output is cash. The environment is the competitive landscape. But this can also be applied to animals and plants. It's all systems thinking. And what B.F. Skinner found was if you change the inputs that an animal receives, you provide the inputs with positive feelings in the form of food or negative feelings in the form of electric shocks, then very consistently the output is the same. A consistent input leads to a consistent output, and he found this was a very repeatable process. And the reason for this consistency is the process part of a rat or a pigeon is relatively simple. They're simple animals that just react in accordance to their environment. But with humans, there's a very different story. We are complex animals. We have complex thoughts and complex emotions, which means that even with consistent inputs, the process means the outputs are very different. You see, with the example I was giving earlier about brushing my teeth, the inputs were there. I optimized my environment. I reminded myself and I created reminders, but it was still a struggle to do it. It didn't feel like it was an effortless habit. And the reason for that was because my thoughts and my emotions weren't aligned with brushing my teeth. I was purely doing it because the people around me were telling me to do it. I didn't have true alignment in myself, and I wasn't doing it because of reasons I knew for myself. It was simply because the people around me were telling me to do it, and this resulted in me constantly having to use willpower in order to use the habit. And for many habits in my life, because of my thoughts and my emotions, I was unable to stick with the habit for a long period of time. I may have done it, but then I would stop and slip back into old habits, and you may be experiencing this as well. Imagine you're a writer, and you've been telling yourself you're going to start writing a book for years and years and years. So you build the optimal environment, your writing tools are laid out perfectly. You build out a cue, a routine, and a reward, and you reward yourself when you do it, and you punish yourself when you don't do it, and you force yourself to sit down to write. What happens next? Well, I know for a fact you're not going to be able to produce the optimal work that you can do because you're focused far more on the behavior, on the external things, the rewards and the punishments, instead of the act itself. And this is a massive flaw that I see people making when it comes to building habits. They focus solely on the behavior. And instead, you should be focused on the mindset. Because instead of forcing yourself to do something, it's better to want to do that thing. And that comes down to your thoughts and your emotions. But how do you go about the process of changing your thoughts and emotions so that you're excited to do the things you want to be doing, to do excited about the things that you know are going to lead you to success and happiness? Well, that comes down to our deep beliefs. It's interesting how some people say that habits take 28 days to form, and other people say that habits take 67 days to form. But in my toothbrushing example, it took me far longer in order to really settle down and feel like I had the habit where I didn't have to force myself and I didn't have to really struggle in order to create the habit. It took far longer, and that's because I believe that habits are far more related to our core beliefs than to the action itself. If you're aligned in your core belief, you're going to be able to form a habit almost effortlessly. Whereas if your core beliefs aren't aligned, you can try and force yourself, but it's never gonna stick. And if there's something in your life that requires a lot of willpower, it's difficult, it's a struggle, perhaps that's also a belief problem as well as just a behavior problem. So in order to overcome this, in order to get your beliefs on your side where you're effortlessly doing the things you know you should be doing, there are 2 steps. First of all, you must become aware. You must become aware of the beliefs that are holding you back. Why have you not consistently gone to the gym? Why do you find yourself smoking? Why do you find yourself doing all of these things? What are the thoughts you're telling yourself? Is it that you're not good enough? Is it that you don't have enough time? Is it that there's too much on your plate? Is it that you don't think the negatives are actually that bad? What are the thoughts that you're telling yourself that are stopping you from becoming the person you want to become? And from there, it's about seeking truth. Genuinely. Instead of focusing on implementing the right behavior, focus on becoming the kind of person that truly understands the deep importance of doing that kind of behavior. Imagine that you're a smoker and you've just got a text from a friend that tells you that he's just got lung cancer. It's absolutely terrible. Chances are that realization, that deep emotional realization that smoking is incredibly dangerous, can often be enough to just snap you out of the habit without having to focus on environment, cue, routine, reward, and all of these other things. By understanding the truth and understanding the deep importance of activities at a core level, oftentimes that's enough to make the change happen. So instead of focusing on behavior, focus on developing your mindset to truly understand the importance of these things. And oftentimes, truth is the cure to fixing habits. For example, for me, in order to get the habit of brushing my teeth down, instead of listening to my parents, I did my own research. I watched a documentary on the importance of brushing my teeth, and I did a bit of Googling. And I understand at a deep level the true importance of this. It's genuinely a very high leverage activity. And when I got that emotional understanding of the importance of the activity, it all became fairly simple. So perhaps in your life, the thing that you've been trying to do and you've been failing, perhaps take a look at your beliefs and understand if there's anything deep that is stopping you from making that change happen. And if you want more videos like this, then click the subscribe button. That way the YouTube algorithm is going to know you like positive, life-changing videos, and it's going to show you more of them so you can fill up your homepage with positive videos. I'll see you in the next video.